With us in the studio, the Executive Director, Research and Advocacy Association of Nigeria Electricity Distributors, ANED, and the spokesperson, of course, of DISCOs, Sunday Oduto, in the studio. Thank you for joining us at this time.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Nice to be back here.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. First off, we've been hearing news about it on the news and papers as well. Have been carrying that power supply has improved across the country. Is that so? Are you distributing more power?
Yes, it has improved. I was asking Mike a few minutes ago whether he has noticed some improvements in supply. Sometimes in some area, there could be local issues impeding better supply. But generally speaking, when you're talking about power supply, you have to look at where we were before, where we're coming from, where are we now? Why are we where we are? Where are we supposed to be? I'll start with South Africa. But that's an African
Perfect
country.
example. All right.
South Africa, with a population of about 67 million people, they currently generate 46,000 megawatts. Their peak demand during winter, you know, their winter is their own summer. During winter is when they need power more to warm, to heat their homes and so on. Their peak demand is 39,000 megawatts. Which means they actually produce more than they consume. And put that side by side with Nigeria. Nigeria has a population of not less than 180 million people. First of all, South Africa has a very good census. So they know how many people are in their country. Nigeria has no good census. We don't even know how many people are here.
Well, we were told
so
193 recently.
We keep on saying very soon will be 200 million. It's 180 million. 2 years ago, we were saying 160 million. But we know we are not less than 180 million. Now, the import of this, a country with 67 million generating 46,000, the normal thing is that you should generate 1,000 megawatts per 1 million populace. So you have 1 million people, 1,000. So what you find is that in the case of Nigeria, if we are 180 million, and we want everywhere in Nigeria, desert, riverine areas, my own village in Ogun State, everywhere, to be powered for 24 hours, you need 180,000 megawatts. Okay? Wow. But that is a dream that would never come true in the next 20 years.
That's utopian.
We should now talk about reality. The first reality is that we have 32 million households in Nigeria. Okay? You now look at how many Nigerians are currently on the grid.
Estimated, or the survey was carried out?
A study was carried out and is very factual.
Okay.
Right? But even with those 32 million households, you have to now talk about how many Nigerians are on the grid. Some Nigerians are off grid, some important people or organizations, like Redeem, Christian Church of God, like Dangote Group and some others, Winners Chapel, they now generate their own power. They have their own small turbines. Assuming those ones remain where they are and they don't come to the national grid, those who are currently on the national grid, if we generate 20,000 megawatts today, at least 80% of those on the grid will have 24-hour electricity. Yes, if we generate 20,000 megawatts today, which means with between 20 and 30,000 megawatts, those on the grid can be sure of 24-hour electricity. But when people talk about 24-hour electricity, like you mentioned, 90% of that we cannot boast of
20
hours. 20 hours for 90%. That will not happen in the next 3 years because it requires a lot of things. First, let's start from where we're coming from. There has been a neglect of this sector for over 60 years. And that's a fact. A few days ago, we were talking about why it was wrong to criminalize estimated billing. And we gave the example of the metering gap. And we're talking about the need for the House of Representatives or the National Assembly to have a second look. It was an appeal for them to have a second look. Because when you have a nation where since 1951, in the day of ECN, we've been having metering gap all along. When you have a nation where an attempt was made by a government around 2002 to roll out meters, and that failed because of corruption, lack of coordination, and inefficiency. You now privatize the entities, in 2013, November 1, and you expect miracle within 4.5 years. It won't happen. It won't happen because there's a need for heavy investment in the sector. Now, what is the state of investment? The problem with the state of investment is that we have a huge shortfall in the system. Why do we have shortfall? We have shortfall because there's a mismatch. You cannot have a mismatch between selling price, buying price, and selling price. If you're selling bread, if you're a bread distributor, I'm a distributor, and I'll give my own example, but I know we have the same problem with generation and transmission. If you're a distributor of bread, and you go to brewery to buy bread, to bakery to buy your bread, and for the baker to produce bread, he needs flour. For the flour maker to produce flour, he needs wheat. So which means there's a chain, a value chain. When you now buy the bread, assuming you buy it for 80 naira, and for some reason the law or the government through an agency or regulator say you must only sell for now at 31 naira. If you are selling an 80 naira loaf of bread at 31 naira, you cannot inject efficiency into that system. You cannot be able to access financing. Is that why
DISCOs now do selective power distribution?
There's nothing like selective power distribution, my sister. You need to understand one thing. We are a business, okay? If I take power to your neighborhood, and your neighborhood, all they do is to steal power, and in your own house, you bypass your meter, you have prepaid meter, and you bypass it. So every time I put, say, 10 million naira worth of electricity into that neighborhood, all I collect is 2.3 million. You want to come back next month? It's difficult because I'm actually owing the market.
Yeah,
and
but in
I'm underselling the product
case,
in the first place.
Yes, but in that kind of situation,
yes,
what happens to the issue of the law and prosecution?
Thank you very much. We all know, and I'm happy you brought that issue. A few days at National Assembly, we still implored the National Assembly members to please let us, instead of chasing another thing that would not be good for the economy, what we need to do is to pass a law that will be specifically meant for criminalizing energy theft, specific one. Because, and we need to also have mobile courts charged specifically to try people who have committed offenses relating to energy theft. So we have caught a retired PAMSEC before in one of the states here in the Southwest. If I had the opportunity of a mobile court, once the gentleman was caught, we could have taken that man into that mobile court on a van in a marketplace and try him summarily, which means the trial does not have to have custodial sentence or something heavy. Even custodial sentence may not be more than 14 days or something. But to serve as a deterrent in a marketplace, for them to see a big man in their neighborhood who is also a thief, that will serve as a deterrent.
Okay.
I'm talking about court processes. I'm a lawyer. Things in Nigeria, when it comes to court, in fact, some people deliberately stop proceedings. They do all sorts of things that are unknown in other climes. So prosecution, we as a businessmen, we can only report crime. We do not have prosecution power.
Okay.
We want to hand them over to the police or civil defense or others, you'll be surprised how things happen at the other end. So there's a need for collaboration among all stakeholders, and not just stakeholders within the power sector. There's also a need for collaboration among all the security apparatus to ensure that once somebody is caught, we don't keep going to court to ask for adjournment upon adjournment on a matter that we can iron out and get the judgment straight and publicize it.
What about the law-abiding customer who pays or is even given estimated bills almost every time and is practically paying for darkness? And then there is this issue among the three chains, the GENCOs, transmission companies, and then the DISCOs. The GENCOs say they are not the ones causing the problem. DISCOs are saying they are not the ones. So what happens to the Nigerian that is paying money but is not getting services commensurate to that? Okay.
For those who are the honest one, who pay or who are willing to pay, I apologize, sincerely so. Because we believe that there are a lot of good Nigerians, and those ones deserve better service. They deserve to have something better than what they are currently having. But In terms of naming, blaming, and claiming, that is not the way to go. I speak for the discourse, for all the discourse, and I have never at any time attempted to blame others. But we need to explain things because it's important for people to know. For instance, I'm a distributor, and if you tell me that you don't have 20 hours of electricity, I will tell you that we have not been able to generate enough for me to give you 20 hours. Today we have less than 5,000 megawatts this morning, okay? And the highest capacity or ability to shut anything out is about 7,000 now. For the populace that we have, the huge population, the demand, that is very, very low. So that is one. On the other hand, I must tell you that it's a two-way thing, because what you find on our network is very appalling and embarrassing. On the one hand, let me talk about us. We need to do more in terms of being more efficient. We need to respond more to fault clearing when people call us that their transformer is broken down and so on. We also need to do more in terms of keeping watch on some of our staff. Not most of them. Most of them are good, but a few of them are very corrupt. And when people report to me that our staff, like somebody said about somewhere in Ikorodu, that they're asking them for money. And I made it very clear that corruption involves, or bribery involves two parties. If you don't offer, the other one will not take. But if the other one asks for it and you don't give it, then they will not get it. Then when you see something wrong, say something. So I wonder, when people complain about things not going on well, but they are not doing anything about it, they expect me in Abuja to sit down there and see what's going on in Ilorin or in Akwa Ibom. It's difficult. We need information, we need cooperation, we need collaboration. But we are not saying we are good enough, we are not efficient enough. As a matter of fact, we need to do more. But we also need to build in more efficiency. But that efficiency is linked to the issue of Naira and Kobo.
All right, talk to us about this issue of the grid system. We've been running a unitary system in the power sector where all the generating companies generate megawatts, throw it into the grid system so that people in Sokoto are getting megawatts from maybe Egni in Lagos. Now, how efficient is that really?
Well, I mentioned earlier that the sector has been neglected for over 60 years. So you cannot fix the rot of 60 years in 3 years. The current government are making a lot of effort, and I must say that here, that kudos to them in terms of the effort that they're making to fix this problem. They own the Transmission Company of Nigeria, 100% owned by the federal government. And there's a lot of bottleneck. But all those, there are a lot of bottlenecks, and all those bottlenecks, they are trying their best to fix them. I've complained here before about, like, Abeokuta, for instance, where there are a lot of epileptic power supply due to transmission constraints. But in the last 2 weeks, they have upgraded the 90 MVA in Ojere Transmission Station to 150 MVA. Such an upgrade in a place like Abeokuta and other places will help the system. But this thing costs a lot of money. And it will take a lot of time for all these things to be fixed. Even without upgrading Abeokuta, we still have bottleneck from Ayobo Ipaja, Lagos West, into Abeokuta. And once the power cannot pass through to Abeokuta, the upgrade will be useless. So we have problem all over. Not just transmission, even distribution network. We need to upgrade our network. But again, that is tied to the issue of Naira and Kobo. As long as you don't have the appropriate pricing of the product, what it means is that you're selling the product at 31 Naira, you're buying at 80 Naira. From day one before you sell, you're already owing the producer that shortfall between 31 Naira and 80 Naira. That's number one. Number two, from that 31 Naira, you can hardly get 19 Naira back from Nigerians. You give them a bill of 5,000, they pay 2,000. The good ones still pay 2,000. Some will not even pay anything. It will now pile up. They will now say, I have crazy billing. And you now look at it and you see. But again, we are taking steps.
But is that to say they're not getting distributed to the 32 million homes?
Exactly.
And on the paper today, NERC is saying that it's okay more firms to procure and install meters. But then you hear stories like even some companies, I don't want to say discos now, don't even want all homes to be metered.
That is totally untrue. with due respect, that is malicious, because it is the interest of the discourse for our customers to be metered. We are more interested in metering than anybody else. And that is why we embrace the new initiative by the federal government in the form of meter asset providers, MAP. That MAP policy, which was one of the things that NAC recently did for the sector, will enable more players, external players, to come in and begin to meter Nigerians so that we can increase the metering gap. I mentioned it before that we have more than 4 million metering gap as of this morning. For those 4, we need 299 billion naira to procure those meters. And what is the allowable capital expenditure in 5 years? 305 billion. And when I say capital expenditure, I'm talking about expenditure that are meant not just for meters, transformer, pole, cables, a lot of other things put into one. If one item already has taken 98% of the expenditure, that tells you that the capex is not enough. And when you increase the capex, then you will increase the tariff, because those things are built inside the tariff.
Why not periodic installments? Maybe for this year, 30% next year. If that had been done since the privatization process, don't you think all Nigerians would have been metered by now?
If that has been done, if, I like that word, the operative word is if, that has not been properly done in the last 5 years.
But who
but I believe that the current NEC commissioners, those who are there now, under the able leadership of Professor Momo, I'm sure they are doing a good job. They've only just started. Again, in the power sector, when they start anything, it takes time for you to see it because it involves a lot of things. I want to believe and I want to hope that the current NEC will do much better than the previous one. The previous one also did their best. Their best may not be good enough, but what I'm saying is that we need investment in the sector. And nobody will come from abroad to invest in a system if they feel that we do not respect the sanctity of contract. There are a lot of things that goes with foreign direct investment. It will interest you to know that out of the 11 discos, only 1 disco has foreign direct investment. Wow. All others were acquired by Nigerians, mostly with loan from Nigerian banks. So even a failure of the power sector today will be a collapse of the Nigerian banking system. So we have to do everything to nurture the baby. The baby is barely 4 years old. I can't expect a 4-year-old baby or a 4-year-old boy to get married now. So don't expect 20 hours of uninterrupted power supply.
Yeah, but the 4-year-old can walk and talk and should start schooling.
Can walk and talk, but cannot say some proverb the way I would say it.
Yes, but the point there is that you know that as far as that 4-year-old baby is being fed and is being given the right food and all of that,
yes,
you should be growing.
Thank you. But what we have is a 4-year-old boy with kwashiorkor who has not been well fed. And what do? You take the 4-year-old boy to the track, you tie his leg and you say, begin to run. You take the 4-year-old boy to the church and you say, boy, we are going. Mike, that's the boy. Mike, we are going to sing hallelujah.
Cannot be Mike.
And you want him to sing hallelujah. What do you do next? You padlock his mouth and you say, begin to sing hallelujah. You cannot sing hallelujah with your mouth closed. You can only sing hallelujah by opening your mouth. And you also want to shave the boy's head. The boy is in Sokoto, and you have the clipper in Lagos. It won't work.
Leave the boy alone. Let the boy grow.
Let the boy grow. Now, the other issue before we go is the issue of the difference between what is generated and what is distributed. Now, we have heard that we have the capacity to generate 7,000 megawatts. We've generated 5,000 sometime recently. The Minister of Power was saying it. But what is distributed? Certainly.
Thank you.
So it brings us back to the issue of, I don't know whether it's infrastructure or something.
I love that. Let me start by saying that sometimes in 2015, the TCN, which is Transmission Company of Nigeria, 100% owned by the federal government, they carried out what we call a stress test to know the generation capacity or ability, transmission capacity or ability, distribution capacity or ability. In the case of our own, which is my interest, distribution companies, it was found, as a matter of fact, that today the Nigerian distribution companies, electricity distribution companies, can distribute 6,288 megawatts. So the day you hear that we are actually putting 7,000 into the grid, I will tell you that the DISCO cannot distribute it. However, I can tell you that at this morning, since 1960 to date, we have never put 7,000 megawatts into the national grid. You know why?
Why? If
we try it, the current transmission company of Nigeria cannot even take 6,000. That is the truth. And that is not blaming the other party. That is just saying that there's a mismatch. There's a need for alignment. As you're working to increase generation, which is a good thing, you must also increase transmission capacity and distribution capacity. But for us, we stand at 6,288. We are still good to go until you get to that mark, and it is impossible.
So in essence, are you saying that the TCN, under the control of the government, is majorly the problem?
I'm saying that there has been a lot of constraint within the TCN. I can give you loads of examples. If you go to Oyo State and Ogun State, between Ayede in Ibadan and Shagamu transmission station in Ogun State, there's what they call underconductor. Underconductor in a layman, I'm a lawyer, I'm not an engineer. Underconductor means that, for instance, you need to use, say, 800 mm cable. And for some reason, some contractor had used 400 mm cables.
Wow.
It means that what will pass through is not going to be more than that 400 mm. That's what's going on between Ayede in Ibadan, Oyo State, transmission station, and the transmission station in Shagamu. And Shagamu serves the whole of Ogun East, Ijebu Ode, Ijebu Gbo. So those are constraints, and it goes everywhere. I can mention other places. However, I can confirm that the current government have started major investment towards solving that problem. But again, it's a question of naira and kobo. Because when you look at the cost of oil, which is our major source of earning for the government, it had gone down as again what happened 6-7 years ago. So there's still a lot to be done. So transmission is an issue, not because people there don't want it to be improved, not because the federal government is not interested in improving it, but the fact is that there's a major problem with transmission. But there's also a problem with distribution. So we are not doing enough, but we're not doing enough because as of today, we have huge deficits on our book.
All right, we have to leave it here.
There's no way we can do anything without naira and kobo.
Naira and kobo. All right, we have to leave it here now. Sodo Duton is the spokesman for DISCOs. Thank you for giving us insight into what is going on.
Thank you very much.
But we certainly look forward to days where Nigerians can go to sleep, there's light in the morning, go to sleep, there's night.
You go to work, you come back.
That is our dream. That's what we're working towards. There will be light in Nigeria.
All right.
Light up
there must be light.
Okay.
And I believe there will be light.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.